I used to think the worst sound in the world was a fire alarm. It's piercing, invasive, a promise of smoke and ruin, but I was wrong. The worst sound in the world is the sharp splintering crack of drywall behind your own skull when your father's hand is wrapped around your throat. It's the sound of a life being sheetrocked over, entombed in a lie. That living room is a museum exhibit in my mind. I could walk you through it blindfolded. The beige tweed couch, the one with the loose thread on the left armrest that I pick at when I was bored. The coffee table with the ghost of 100 Budweiser cans, a permanent Milky ring that my mom swore she'd sand out but never did. The smell of lemon pledge and the faint acrid undertone of my dad's work boots by the door. And the stairs. Exactly 14 creaky steps from the second floor landing to the front doormat. I was on the top step that night, 17 years old, drowning in a sea of AP calculus derivatives that felt like a foreign language. The house was quiet except for the hum of the furnace and the distant thump of the dryer in the basement, my chore. I had just come up for a glass of water. Then the front door exploded inward. Elena stumbled through, and even then, even in the split second before the world inverted, my brain registered the wrongness of it. She was hyperventilating, yes, her chest heaving like a wounded bird. But her eyes were scanning the room, landing on the doorway to the kitchen, then the stairs. Calculating. She wasn't disoriented, she was orienting. Her mascara was a deliberate disaster. It was smeared down her cheeks in two perfect, watery tracks. I knew because I'd seen her practice crying in the bathroom mirror when she wanted to get out of gym class. Real crying is messy. Real crying clumps the lashes and floods the whites of your eyes red. This was watercolor, not a flood. Dad. Mom. Marcus was in my room. He wouldn't stop. He touched me. 10 words. 10. I still count them when I can't sleep. She delivered them like a line from a school play, clear enunciation, just enough tremor in the voice to sell the trauma, but not so much that you couldn't understand the accusation. My calculus textbook slipped from my hand. The sound of the spine hitting the hardwood floor was a gunshot in the silence that followed her words. I opened my mouth. I was going to say, "What?" I was in the basement. The dryer buzzed 3 minutes ago. Check the lint filter. The words never formed. My father's hand was on my throat. Not slapping, not shoving, crushing. He was an IBEW electrician, with 40 years of pulling wire through conduit. His grip was like a hydraulic press. He slammed me back against the hallway wall, and I felt the drywall buckle against my spine. A framed photo fell. Disney World. 2018. All four of us smiling in front of Cinderella's castle. The glass shattered on the crown of my head. "You piece of filth. In my house? With your sister?" His face was 2 inches from mine. I could smell the coffee on his breath and the dial soap on his skin. This was the man who taught me to throw a curveball. This was the man who cried at my 8th grade graduation. And in his eyes there wasn't a shred of question. There was only the righteous fury of a protector, aimed entirely at the wrong target. "Dad, I was in the basement. Don't you dare lie to me." He threw me. He didn't push me. He threw me like I was a bag of trash that had ripped open on the curb. I was airborne for a terrifying, weightless second. Then the stairs. The first step caught my hip. The third step caught my shoulder. I heard the pop of my clavicle separating from the joint before I felt it. The pain came a moment later, a white-hot lance that made me see stars. I landed in a heap on the tile of the foyer. My vision swam. Through the ringing in my ears, I looked up at the spindles of the railing. And there she was. Elena. Standing at the top of the stairs, haloed by the hallway light. She wasn't crying. She wasn't looking at my father with gratitude. She was looking at my calculus book, which had landed open on the floor, pages bent and smeared with a faint smear of blood from my head, and she smirked. It wasn't a gotcha smirk of a prank gone too far. It was the cold, reptilian satisfaction of a chess player who has just sacrificed a pawn to free up a diagonal for the queen. I was the pawn. And her queen was the narrative of the brave survivor. My mother was on the phone. Her voice was a quavering mess of rage and tears. "Yes, he's still here. My husband has him restrained. Hurry, please God, hurry!" She didn't look at me on the floor. She didn't ask if I could move my arm. She didn't see her son. She saw a monster she'd been harboring. They didn't let me pack a bag. I left that house in the clothes I was wearing. sweatpants, a stained t-shirt, and one sock missing. The cold November air bit through the fabric as the squad car door slammed shut. That was the last time I saw the inside of that beige living room. Cleared. It's a sterile word. It sounds like a medical procedure. We've cleared the blockage, but in the justice system, cleared is a euphemism for failed to convict. It means there wasn't enough evidence to send a minor to juvie for a felony. It does not mean believed. It does not mean innocent. In the court of Miller family public opinion, the verdict was swift and final. My father called the precinct desk the next morning. I heard the officer sigh. "Mr. Miller, the investigation is ongoing. He's a minor. Tell that monster if he steps foot on my property again, I'll finish what I started." My mother came to the station to pick up her baby, meaning Elena, who was giving a tearful coach statement to a female detective. I was sitting on a hard plastic chair in the hallway, my arm in a sling, waiting for a social worker to figure out what to do with me. My mother walked past me like I was a stranger. I reached out, a reflex, a child's instinct to reach for his mother. "Mom?" She stopped. She looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. Her face was a mask of grief and disgust. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said, her voice low and steady. "Don't call me that. Don't call the house. Don't call anywhere. You're not my son." She turned and walked toward the interview room where Elena was waiting, and she didn't look back. That was the moment the circuit tripped inside me. Not a dramatic explosion of rage, just a quiet, definitive click. The power went out. I spent the next 5 years in a fog of survival. Couch surfing at first, a friend's basement here, a distant cousin's floor there. But the whispers follow you. You know why he's not at home, right? People look at you differently. They clutch their daughters a little tighter when you walk by. Eventually, the couches run out. I slept in a Ford Taurus with a busted heater through a January freeze. I know exactly what it feels like to wake up with ice on the inside of the windshield and your breath fogging so thick you can't see the steering wheel. I worked under the table jobs at diners, washing dishes until my hands were cracked and bleeding from the industrial soap. I got my GED in a fluorescent-lit community college basement, surrounded by other ghosts, single mothers, ex-cons, kids who fell through the cracks. The only thing that saved me was Mr. Henderson. He owned the local hardware store, a dusty, cluttered place that smelled like sawdust and machine oil. He caught me sitting on an overturned 5-gallon bucket in the lumber aisle, reading an electrical code manual I'd pulled off the shelf. I wasn't trying to steal it. I was just reading. I missed the logic of it. I missed my dad's voice explaining Ohm's law while we fixed a light switch. The past is a live wire. Touch it wrong, and you'll fry. You trying to be a sparky kid? Mr. Henderson had a limp and a voice like gravel rolling downhill. I just like knowing how things connect. He looked at me for a long time. He had the eyes of a man who'd seen his share of busted men and busted circuits. Connections are important, but you gotta know which ones are hot and which ones are dead. Come with me. He got me into the apprenticeship program at Local 134. I threw myself into the work like a drowning man clutching a life raft. Conduit bending was a meditation, the precise, satisfying give of the metal as you shaped it to your will. Grounding was a religion. You can't bullshit a ground wire. It either carries the fault current safely to the earth, or it doesn't, and someone gets hurt. There's no he said she said in a breaker panel. There's only the cold, indifferent truth of voltage and resistance. I rebuilt myself in the image of a perfect circuit, clean, efficient, and closed. 5 years. I was 23. My journeyman's card was laminated and worn in my back pocket. I had a studio apartment with a view of a brick wall, but it was mine. My truck was a 2015 Silverado with a dent in the tailgate and an engine that purred. I could sleep through the night without flinching at footsteps, though the sound of a door slamming still made my shoulder ache with phantom pain. Then the phone rang. I was in the electrical room of a new high-rise on Wacker Drive. The air hummed with the deep bone-shaking vibration of the 480-volt transformers. It was a good sound. A sound of purpose. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. "Marcus?" My hand tightened around the phone until the plastic case creaked. I knew that voice. It was thinner now, stripped of the authority it once held. It sounded like dry leaves scraping concrete. My mother. My jaw locked so tight I thought I'd crack a molar. "I have nothing to say to you." "Wait, Please don't hang up. Please. It's about Elena. The name was like a needle sliding under my fingernail. I felt a cold, violent rush of adrenaline. My vision sharpened on the dusty coils of the transformer. I don't care if she's dead or alive. Actually, I'd prefer the former. It would save me the cost of a stamp when I piss on her grave. She told us, my mother whispered. The words tumbled out, frantic, desperate. She told us the truth. She made it up. She admitted it to her therapist. It was a lie, Marcus. All of it, the touching, the everything. She just wanted you out of the house. She was jealous of the attention you were getting for college. She laughed about it in her session. The therapist had to break confidentiality because she showed no remorse. She's got something wrong with her, Marcus. We were so wrong. I leaned against the cold metal of the switchgear. The hum of the electricity filled my head. 5 years. 5 years of frozen windshields and strangers' floors and the smell of bleach on my hands. And this was the reason? Jealousy over college? I expected a flood. A tsunami of vindication, of tears, of finally. But the flood didn't come. The void inside me was vast and dry. A desert where nothing grew. Okay, I said. My voice was flat. A dead circuit. Okay? She sounded bewildered. Is that all you can say? We've been trying to find you for weeks. We have to make this right. Your father, he's sick, Marcus. His heart is bad. He lost his job at the plant a year ago. We lost the house. The market turned, and we'd taken out a second mortgage to pay for Elena's treatment. For her issues. We're about to be evicted from the rental on Ashland. The landlord is selling to a developer. We have nowhere to go. She paused. I could hear my father's labored breathing in the background, a wet, heavy sound. He was there, listening. We need a place to stay, just for a month or two, until we get back on our feet. We're your family, Marcus. We're all we have. Amazing how fast family turns into strangers when one lie feels more convenient than the truth. Where's Elena? I asked. The question was a knife I was already sharpening in my mind. Another pause. I heard a muffled sob, my mother's. Then my father's voice, distant and hoarse. Tell him. She felt terrible about what she did, my mother said, her voice taking on that pleading, excuse-making tone I remembered so well. She couldn't face us. She couldn't face the town. She moved. She's out in Arizona now. Sedona area, I think. With some guy she met online. She said she needed a fresh start. To heal. Of course she did. She ran away to another state to avoid any accountability from the people she deceived. She didn't stick around to see my father's health crumble or watch my mother cry. She dropped the truth bomb, watched the crater form, and then fled the blast radius. She left them to pick up the pieces and come crawling to the sun they threw away. A cold, cruel clarity settled over me. It wasn't rage. It was a mathematical certainty. You want to stay with me? I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, a diagnosis of their situation. Just until your father gets back on his feet. He's so sorry, Marcus. He cries about you at night. He can't live with what he did. We'll do anything. We'll sign anything. Just, please, don't let us end up on the street. I looked at the label on the transformer in front of me. Warning, high voltage may cause severe injury or death. Meet me at the Golden Nugget Diner on Western Avenue, I said. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I hung up before she could say thank you. The Golden Nugget Diner was a relic. Chrome trim, cracked red vinyl booths, and the smell of stale fryer grease and burnt coffee. It was neutral ground, my ground. I got there early. I sat in a booth facing the door, a cup of black coffee steaming in front of me. I didn't drink it. I just watched the door. They walked in at 2:07 p.m. My father first, holding the door with a hand that trembled visibly. He was a ghost of the man who'd thrown me down the stairs. His face was gaunt, his skin the color of old putty. His eyes were sunken, watery. He walked with a shuffle, like his feet were made of lead. My mother followed, clutching her purse like a life preserver. Her hair, once a proud chestnut brown she touched up every 6 weeks, was now a wiry gray that hadn't seen a salon in months. She looked old, broken. They spotted me and froze for a second. My father flinched. He actually flinched, as if I was the one who might throw him against a wall. The irony was a bitter pill I didn't bother swallowing. They slid into the booth opposite me. The vinyl wheezed under their weight. "Son," my dad started, his voice a gravelly whisper. "Don't call me that." His mouth closed, his jaw worked, but no sound came out. He looked down at the table. He was wearing a wedding ring, but it was loose on his thin finger, spinning freely. I let the silence stretch. I wanted them to feel the weight of 5 years of it. The waitress came by, a tired woman with a name tag that said Dottie. My parents ordered water. They couldn't afford coffee. Finally, I spoke. I kept my voice low and calm, the way you talk to a dangerous animal or a faulty breaker panel before you shut it down. "Let me make sure I have the facts straight. Elena, the daughter you chose over your son, told you I assaulted her. You, Dad, physically attacked me, dislocated my shoulder, and threw me into the street as minor. You, Mom, looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer your son. You erased me. You didn't check on me. You didn't send a birthday card. You let me starve and freeze for 5 years while you paid for Elena's therapy and her fresh start. Now, she's admitted it was a lie. She's run off to Arizona to live her best life, and you're here because you're about to be homeless." My mother reached a trembling hand across the table. Her fingers were bony, the knuckles swollen with arthritis. I pulled my hand back like she was radioactive. "Marcus, she was sick. We didn't know. We were trying to protect her." "She wasn't sick," I said, the words cold and sharp as a razor blade. "She was bored. She was jealous. She knew exactly what she was doing. She saw me get assaulted and literally tossed out of the house so her little power play could work. And you were gullible. You were conveniently gullible. It was easier to believe the pretty white girl with the tears than the black son you'd always had to explain to the neighbors." My father flinched again, deeper this time. The truth of it hit him like a slap. "We'll do anything," he said, his voice cracking like old plaster. "We'll tell everyone the truth. We'll go to the paper. We'll stand in the town square. We'll make this right, Marcus. I swear on my life." "You can't make it right," I said. I leaned forward slightly. "You can't unbreak my shoulder. You can't unspend those 5 years. You can't unsay, 'You're not my son.' The current has already passed through the circuit, Dad. The damage is done. The wires are melted. You can't fix it. You can only pay for your own mistake." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. I slid it across the sticky tabletop toward them. My mother grabbed it with desperate hope, her eyes searching my face for a sign of the little boy she used to read bedtime stories to. That boy was dead. He died on a tile floor in November. Inside the envelope were 3 things: a printout of the Illinois State Bar Association's referral page for bankruptcy attorneys, a glossy brochure for the Pacific Garden Mission, a men's shelter downtown. It had a picture of a smiling, clean-shaven man holding a Bible. It looked like a lie, a single piece of white paper with an address in Sedona, Arizona, scrawled in my own handwriting. My mother stared at the address, her brow furrowed. "What's this?" "That's Elena's last known address," I said. "I hired a skip tracer. It cost me $200. Consider it my final gift to you. You can go find her. You can show up on her doorstep in Arizona and ask her to take you in, see if her fresh start and her new boyfriend have room for the 2 people whose lives she also detonated." My father looked up from the bankruptcy pamphlet, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrible understanding. "You're going to leave us like this?" The old anger flickered in his eyes, a ghost of the man who threw me down the stairs. "We're your parents! You'd let us end up on the streets!" I stood up. I straightened my jacket. I looked down at him, the man who taught me how to tie a hook on a fishing line and how to check for voltage with a multimeter. "You're the man who taught me that actions have consequences," I said, my voice quiet and final. "You taught me if I touched a hot wire, I'd get burned. You touched a live wire when you believed her over me without asking a single question. Consider yourselves burned. The circuit is open. The connection is dead." I threw a crumpled $10 bill on the table for my untouched coffee. My mother's voice chased me as I turned toward the door. It was shrill, desperate, cracking into a sob. "Please, Marcus, she was just a girl. She made a mistake." I stopped at the door. The little bell jingled cheerfully above my head, a sound utterly at odds with the wreckage behind me. I looked back over my shoulder. "No," I said. "She didn't make a mistake, she made a decision, a calculated selfish decision to ruin my life because she didn't want to share a bathroom, and you made a decision to believe her because it was the easier story to tell yourself. You're not victims of her, you're her accomplices. Goodbye." I pushed open the diner door. The afternoon sun hit my face, bright and warm. I could smell the fresh asphalt of the parking lot and the exhaust from a passing bus. I got in my truck, closed the door, and the sounds of the city, the horns, the rumble of the L train, faded into a muffled hum. I put the key in the ignition and turned it. The engine roared to life, a deep, reliable vibration I felt in my chest, fuel and spark, a perfect, closed circuit. I put the truck in gear and pulled out onto Western Avenue. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. There was nothing back there worth seeing. The circuit was open, and for the first time in 5 years, the current was finally, mercifully, flowing exactly where it was supposed to go. Forward.